I'm Jennifer Granholm, your Secretary of Energy. This series brings you real conversations that dive into how we can move this country closer and closer to our clean energy future and all of its benefits, like lower energy costs, of course, and cleaner air and water and healthier kids, and of course, job opportunities, and really American energy security. So no one can talk about the clean energy future better than people that are making it happen on the ground. And of course, I'm talking about America's mayors. And today, I'm super excited to be with three mayors who are really leading the charge on climate action in states that are really grappling with the climate impacts and the energy transition. Mayor LaToya Cantrell of New Orleans, Mayor Sylvester Turner of Houston, Mayor Kate Gallego of Phoenix. Super excited. And I'm going to allow the three of you to just say, introduce yourself, but also maybe tell us a couple of the things that you're most proud of accomplishing in this clean energy space. And so, Mayor Cantrell, maybe I'll start with you in New Orleans.
All right now, Madam Secretary. Well, thank you so much for having me. And it's always good to be with my brother and sister mayor, because you said it right. We are boots on the ground and definitely leading at the local level, which really leads at the national level. So I am very much proud of the work that we've done in the city of New Orleans. We focusing being more resilient for our residents and building for the future. In 5 to 10 years, I believe that our city will be more sustainable and also more equitable overall. We've been promoting renewable energy like rooftop solar, community solar gardens have proved to be effective and getting the buy-in of our residents. The city and region will be leading in energy transition, rooted in our history and expertise in energy as an energy producer. We have been installing public EV charging stations all around our city, looking through the lens of equity, and so happy to have a federal administration that is uplifting this work and pushing it forward. We're requiring our public utility to transition to renewable platforms. And we've been investing in our resilient platforms as well in terms of green and blue infrastructure that all has an immediate impact on climate change. We're pursuing several changes around energy efficiency for New Orleanians that they will see in the years to come. Transportation is also a part of this that speaks to our state and at the federal level, and along with the private companies to establish EV charging stations again across the city and layered with our public dollar as well. In 2020, we launched our Solar for All program to install solar onto our homeowners throughout the city. We have Green Mortgages, a platform that we are providing. And so we know that when I think about the Solar for All, it's saving residents right now annually about $800, and that's a big deal. So with that, I'm going to be quiet and turn it over back to you, Madam Secretary.
I love it. I love it. You are doing an all of the above strategy. Of course, we know that solar is the cheapest form of energy. Mayor Turner of Houston, you are in a sunny spot, but also a traditional fossil fuel community. Tell us what you're doing on the clean side.
Well, Madam Secretary, it's good to be with you. It's good to be with my sister, Mayor, right over in New Orleans. And of course, it's good to be with my Mayor Gallego, the co-chair of U.S. Climate Mayors. So look, let me just say in terms of renewables, the city of Houston purchases more renewables than any other city in the United States. And as of July 1st, 2020, all of our city buildings are 100% powered by renewables, working in collaboration with NRG. So we're real pleased about that. Number two, Winter Storm Uri hit us in February of 21. And so we are putting forth our master energy plan, building resilience into our system. Appreciate the dollars, the infrastructure dollars for grid. So thank us again to the Biden administration for that. So that's helping for us to produce our master energy plan. And then we are proud of the energy transition. You came and visited with us at Greentown Labs that expanded from Boston. They were supposed to construct 50 2.0 energy companies by 2025. I'm here to tell you that as of today, they are at 62.
No,
They are
that's
well,
amazing.
they are well ahead of schedule,
Kicking
and
it.
we are focusing on establishing the carbon capture utilization as well as the hydrogen coastal hub right here in the city of Houston.
It's exciting. Everybody wants to be part of this new clean hydrogen wave, which is very fun. We can talk about. But Mayor Gallego of Phoenix, I know you guys, the #1 state for solar, at least #1 or #2. I think California would vie with you for that. But nonetheless, I know that you are leading in green. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Absolutely. I have a undergrad environmental degree, and while I was getting that degree, was a DOE intern at Sandia National Labs. So
yes,
thank you for investing in people early. We are deploying so many of the technologies that those national lab scientists have helped develop. Last time you and I were together, we talked about an app that NREL has developed with other partners to get solar on buildings that helps us get through our inspection process. We have a huge interest in this community in installing solar on residential and commercial facilities, and we cannot hire inspectors quickly enough. So having an app that speeds that up is a big help.
All right. So I just want to say, Mayor Cantrell, Mayor Turner, I just want you to listen to this little commercial that she's doing right here. It is free, the solar app, and it allows you to do instantaneous permitting of solar on roofs. So sorry, Mayor, I didn't want to cut you off, but I had to take the moment to capture the plug.
I think any mayor in the country would love help. Just so much excitement in cities right now. And again, we cannot hire quickly enough with the amount of interest in solar. We're also seeing huge interest in electric vehicles. As I sit here, just during our conversation, several autonomous electric vehicles have driven by City Hall. They're in testing phase right now. Wow. We just had a comedian who was doing a show in Phoenix and got into one of these vehicles. And he said it kind of freaked him out to see the wheel turning without a driver, but that the future is now in Phoenix, Arizona. Some of the same things that make us a solar capital, our great sun and limited storms, also make us a great community for autonomous electric vehicles because we have wide streets and really great conditions for the LiDAR and other technology that is powering those vehicles. We also have capacity in our grid to charge those vehicles, and we're investing in even more. So if you go to our zoo right now, you should feel free to stay as long as you want because you can charge your vehicle and take the kids to enjoy that. It's rhino themed charging, no pun intended. But we're having a lot of fun with it. And we find people enjoy places, including our shopping malls and our zoo, when they can really get a good charge. So it seems to be good for business and good for the
and good for costs for people. I mean, assuming that they can afford to get into an electric vehicle, which is a big assumption. I know the president wants to bring down the price at the dealership by adopting tax credits that take about $10,000 off the hood of the car so that they're on par with the gas-powered car when you buy them, right? So you want to make sure there's equity in making sure people have access to the vehicles. And as Mayor Cantrell was saying, access to the chargers as well, ensuring that they're in all places. But let me, because every community is unique, right? You've just described some of the unique attributes of Phoenix, but I am wondering, Mayor Turner, about the transition. So Houston, obviously a major energy capital, obviously dominated by oil and gas, and now you want it to be the clean energy capital. How are you, as mayor, approaching the transition, given the constituencies that you have, and how do you see clean as an opportunity for Houston and not a threat against your traditional industries?
Well, it's not just good for the environment, it's good for the economy. And quite frankly, after Hurricane Harvey in 2017, that was a game changer because even people in the industry woke up and said, hey, things have to change. The storms are coming with greater frequency. 7 federally declared disasters since I've been mayor. So wow. we recognized that we needed to make a transition. So the Resilient Houston Plan has been underwritten by Shell. my climate action plan that we announced on Earth Day in 2020, underwritten by CenterPoint Utility. We have taken a landfill, 240 contaminated acres. Just 2 weeks ago, we got the permit from the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality to move forward now to building the largest urban solar farm in the country.
Wow.
And working with the energy sector, it will literally take 120 million pounds of carbons, out of the air. It will have enough power to generate from 5 to 10,000 homes, a $70 million investment in this low-income African-American community where this landfill has been holding it down for the past 50 years. So that's taking place. And just like we talked about climate tech, Greentown Labs, we are recognizing that we have to do things differently. So the focus is on clean tech, climate tech, technology and innovation. And then even the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change said that we have to use more innovations and multiple technologies. And so Houston, I think, is prime for that. And not without making a pitch, but when it comes to all of the energy companies in the city of Houston, we have some of the largest greenhouse gas emitters, a large industrial complex. And so to the extent we can change that, then the impact would not just be local, but global. So we are talking about carbon capture, utilization, and storage, and hydrogen. We have more hydrogen assets right here than any place in the country. Not only the assets, but also the customer base. And working with Louisiana, if you combine Louisiana and the state of Texas, then I think we are primed. And so the energy companies, and what I said to the CEOs, it's not a want to, it's a must.
Mm-hmm.
And the city of Houston is saying to them, look, we're not trying to run away from you, but we all recognize we have to do things differently. So let's move forward. Let's not stand still. Let's not ignore the science. And if you want to continue to be the energy capital, so to speak, now you have to lead an energy transition.
Yeah, I think this is such an important message. And honestly, I think many of the oil and gas companies, certainly the majors, understand this, and some of them are engaging in their own diversification strategies to become diversified energy companies. Some are a little dragging their feet. Some of the independents see it more as a threat. But I'm wondering, Mayor Cantrell, I mean, you're in the Gulf Coast, you're in the same, you've got a lot of those same constituents as well, and people who work in that industry. How are you approaching the transition?
Our approach to the transition is really by investing in green infrastructure. And, we're seeing it pay off in huge ways. Hurricane Ida, as you know, was one of the strongest storms that hit our city, and on the anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. But we saw minimal flooding and our levees held. And it demonstrated that when you invest big, the results are big. They pay off dividends. And also, as it relates to the green infrastructure components and spending that, the federal money, over 150 million, creating systems that will hold water, freeing up that water from going into the drains and people's homes and properties and the like. And our residents are now seeing it in action. And so when they see it, they're now buying into it and seeing the real impacts on the ground. But we're investing further in climate action as well. So our climate action plan calls for the city to reach net zero by 2050, and in line with the Biden administration, and even, as it relates to Paris as well. But we cannot reach the goal without transitioning to clean energy. And so my administration's goal really has been to accelerate energy efficiency and renewable energy platforms, not just in the transition to EV, but even as it relates to our sewage and water board, our large utility, getting off of generating its own power through steam, but in partnership with creating a power plant that's needed. And it will cut the cost down 5 times the amount we're spending right now. It will reduce our carbon footprint. It commits to about 75%. It contributes right now to that carbon footprint. So just moving forward with our power plant will cut those emissions. And so we feel that this approach, again, will benefit our city, benefit our country, and of course the globe.
Yeah, I love the emphasis on infrastructure as being a way that people can tangibly see, but obviously it benefits them enormously. You know, Mayor Gallego, a different kind of infrastructure, of course, is buildings. I mean, Phoenix has got the most extreme heat every summer, and yet you've done some interesting infrastructure investment, or at least incentivized it on climate-friendly buildings. And I'm wondering what that looks like in Phoenix.
So we have an entire office at the city, the Office of Heat Response and Mitigation, that looks at heat in citywide perspective. And we have someone really focused on the most advanced building technology. We want the cool companies to test their technology in Phoenix and be forward in that area. We also are doing a lot with our commercial and industrial properties. We had a great success at our airport where we were able to invest in cooling tower technology and dramatically reduce water use and energy use. In the desert, there's a lot of energy used to move water, and we really are conscious of that.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the research from DOE, again, helped us in that area, and we want to deploy that to the private sector even more quickly. So this Wednesday, we're launching what we think is the country's first blue bank, and we will try to help get those cooling tower projects through our community in partnership with Bonneville Power, and then have projects where there'll be carbon credits as well that we can accumulate and help move forward with that. So wish us luck on Wednesday.
Well, may the force be with you. Well, actually, it's more than the fourth now. But we're this notion of adapting to the extreme heat is important in dry climates, and it's important in humid climates too. And that's obviously Mayors Turner and Cantrell. I'm curious about whether you've had to think about climate adaptation measures and whether you've been implementing them to protect your residents, especially the most vulnerable from extreme heat. Mayor Cantrell, is this something you're working on too?
Oh, yes, indeed, Madam Secretary. One of the things when Ida came our way, it was also during a heat advisory that we had in the city. And we saw a need to pivot real quickly to create cooling centers and stations throughout the city. And we leaned on our recreation facilities throughout every councilmatic district. The good news is that prior to Hurricane Ida, my administration had outfitted these facilities with transfer switches to be able to be powered by generators like in real time. And so we set up over 9 of these rec centers, and they saved lives. You know, they offered people a place to go, not only to cool off, but also to get information, to get food, and you name it. We also activated our buses. Our regional transit authority, we use buses that we can mobilize them throughout the city for cooling centers for our residents as well. Even pets. We had several of the buses just for pets to cool off and get water and food and the like. But that was a lesson learned. And so we have embraced these concepts as we prepare for hurricane season this year. And we have partnered with our utility, Entergy, to outfit the additional facilities in our city. So that's going on right now, just in preparation for hurricane season so that we can immediately stand up. But also a part of it goes back to infrastructure regarding our urban canopy. We've invested heavily here over the past year and for this year's budget to improve our urban canopy, planting more trees and cooling off neighborhoods and the like. So those are some of the things that we're doing in the city.
I love urban canopy. I love greening of areas because it just, obviously the concrete, the tar, it makes it just so darn hot. And I'm wondering, Mayor Turner, I mean, in Houston, you got a lot of freeway, you have a lot of heat. I'm wondering if you've had to implement climate mitigation or adaptation measures for residents as a result of heat?
And Madam Secretary, the answer is absolutely yes. And climate change is real. It's not just focusing on the summer months.
Yeah.
I mean, we're having to focus on it right now in the month of May. In May, this will be a very hot weekend for us.
Huh.
So a part of the climate action plan is for us to plant 4.6 million trees
Wow.
between now and 2030. That's a part of the plan. And I'll tell you, but it's not just planting them anywhere. We joined with Harris County to do this heat mapping study to measure where are the spaces, using the data to determine where these trees should be planted to create a more cooling environment. And based on that analysis, that's where we will start to plant. And we have started to plant many of these trees. And then where to put the more cooling pavement in. So based on the data, working with the Zurich Project, the Resilient Cities Network, we are using that data to make those assessments. We are putting in the cooling stations, and then we're recognizing that there are certain populations, especially people in low-income communities, that have to deal with the extreme weather conditions, whether it's cold or heat. So we're really concentrating, utilizing that equity piece and determine where we deploy our resources. And then we're working with our utilities, putting a lot of pressure on them because there are a lot of homes that need to be weatherized. So even if you put air conditioning in, if the homes are not sufficiently, let's say, weatherized, then it creates a lot of inefficiency and you lose a lot of that air. So that's a major part of the plan is weatherizing and directing the resources into these vulnerable communities.
So I'm so glad that you raised weatherization. That bipartisan infrastructure law
Yes.
gave another $4.5 billion for us to be able to weatherize more homes. It's going to allow us, normally in a given year, the funding that goes through the states allows us to weatherize across the country about 35,000 homes. That's not that many, given that there are 39 million homes that are eligible. But that extra $4.5 billion allows us to do another 500,000 homes. And for many homes, and I'm sure you've heard this, if they have a structurally unsound roof, for example, they may not be eligible to be weatherized. And if they have a structurally unsound roof, they probably need it the most. And same thing with mold, especially in humid areas. So part of the budget we're asking for, and that part of what we've included, is to be able to do weatherization pre-readiness, so that making a house weatherization ready, so that it can then make sure that we actually do the whole thing. And how we send out to the states and the cities what is known as LIHEAP money, low income home energy assistance. And those are funds that go to communities or to households that can't pay their utility bill. Well, that's great, but why don't we pair that up with weatherization so that we can make sure that the home is buttoned up and not leaking out, whether it's air conditioning or heat, so that we can do more homes. I'm curious, though, the issue about adaptation and the notion of greening, and especially in areas where there are hurricanes. Do you have to do something special for young trees to make sure that they are not going to be just lifted up by the next big storm? Is there some sort of special consideration that you have to make if you're going to be planting, millions of trees?
I think it's important to plant them at the right period of time, so to speak, in the year. So a lot of the trees that we are planting is like in January, February, March. So we're doing that. We are placing a lot of resources and building out our parks and green space, and really placing those trees in those particular spaces. And we are concentrating on what we call the local neighborhood parks. There are about 350, 380 in the city of Houston. We have our signature parks, and they got a lot of investment, a lot of people prepared to invest in them. But a lot of these 350 to 380 local neighborhood parks, they need more trees, they need additional resources, and to plant them where they will last.
Yeah.
So that's important. Irrigation systems are all important. All of those things that should go along with it. It's not just putting the tree in the ground, but it's all of those other elements that go along with them to make sure that 5 years from now, they're still around.
All right, that is great to know. So I'm going to pick on your experience, and I want to ask you all this question. If you had, because when I was governor, we used to poach from one another all the time, and I'd go to those conferences, and I'd say, "Oh, so and so governor's doing this. We're going to do that in Michigan." If you had a piece of advice for other mayors looking for best practices, best idea, best thing that's worked for you in this climate space, what would you say? And Mayor Gallego, why don't I start with you?
Wonderful. For me, I'm very focused on green jobs and making sure we have the workforce to put all this innovation in place. We have had some very key partners, including our community college. So we just entered in a $10 million partnership with them that will help us make sure we have these advanced manufacturing skill sets ready to go, and we have the folks ready to work on electric vehicles. We have a very significant manufacturing presence in the greater Phoenix area, such that we have been called the Electric Vehicle Valley. And that means we need a lot of individuals who are ready to go into these jobs. Unfortunately, now there's a little bit of a shortage, and some of the companies are poaching from each other. So we're really trying to invest ahead of time in training, and then great partnerships with unions like IBEW to make sure that the young people and people of all ages in our community are ready to go. We're also investing in local workforce in other areas. When Mayor Turner was talking about trees, we have proposed with our federal American Rescue Plan dollars to have a core of people who maintain trees in their neighborhood.
Wow.
So we're gonna
Interesting, huh?
We're proposing a tree accelerator, and a homeowner could get up to 4 trees, and we're really targeting this with equity in mind. And then we will pay people in the community to maintain those trees and give them the educational background. And that is coupled with us changing our city procurement. Instead of doing 1 big or 2 big contracts to maintain landscaping, we're trying to do a bunch of smaller ones so that small businesses can get that great contract with the city, which they can then take to financial partners to get capital and grow their businesses. So it's a very
great idea. Yeah, small and minority-owned businesses getting a piece of being able to, to do climate work in the city. Awesome. Very cool. All right, Mayor Cantrell, what would you say?
Well, first I would say start making investments in green infrastructure right now, because our climate is not changing. It already has. And when we see on the ground the impacts of the green infrastructure, it's saving properties, and we know that ultimately will be one that will save lives, but also create jobs for the future. So much like my sister Mayor just indicated, focusing on that workforce development component, so that our local community are skilled at providing water management and managing all of this infrastructure that we have in the ground, but that's forthcoming, but also needing to maintain it. But I would say these conferences and the convenings are very fruitful. And speaking around coming together regarding opportunities with the IJA bill. And working with these groups in other cities has allowed us to learn and share best practices in the field. So we're not reinventing the wheel, but we're looking at projects that are working and where we in cities have been able to bring people along. It's also important to create a climate resiliency team, I would say. And this team should be dedicated to designing and building green infrastructure to mitigate the ever-present and increasing threats of climate change. I mean, those are just a few nuggets that I would offer.
I love it. I love it. And I love the reinforcement of convening with others to share best practices. Super important. All right, Mayor Turner, what would be number 1 piece of advice on your list?
I guess my number 1 would be take advantage of the dollars that have been made available, for example, through the bipartisan infrastructure bill, to be transformational. Don't use the dollars and be an incrementalist. because no one will appreciate the little bit you do.
That's
If
right.
you're going to use them, be transformational. That would be the number one piece. And then and if you allow me to say a second one, and that is you can't have climate adaptation, climate change without being resilient. And you can't have climate adaptation and resilience without equity. Leave no community behind.
Equity is so important. I'm so proud to be working for an administration that has a commitment to justice and equity and environmental justice with our Justice 40 initiative. 40% of the benefits of the investments from that bipartisan infrastructure law must go to communities, fence line communities, communities that should be at the front of the line and have historically been at the back. So super excited to hear that emphasis on equity. It is
Madam Secretary, and tell the story. Don't
and
do don't do good things with the dollars that's been made available without telling the story. Go and tell where the dollars came from. Tell the story.
I think we all agree with that, with that from the perspective of making sure people know how the funds came that way and what the benefit of it was when you were able to deploy. So thank you for that. I just want to thank the three of you. You are in the fight on a daily basis. So grateful to you for taking a minute away from the fight to join us here, but this is another version of it so that we can share the news about what you are doing in some of the most impacted communities in the country in terms of extreme weather events. I'm guessing that as you talk to your citizens, people are saying all the time, hey, when I was young, we didn't have this many days of heat where we couldn't walk on the sidewalk. When I was young, the hurricanes, I mean, we had them, but they weren't like lifting homes up. I mean, you probably have people talking about these extreme weather events all the time. We see it as well. We spent $148 billion last year as a country cleaning up after these extreme weather events that you all experience all the time. Let us work on preventing more from happening and allowing our citizens to be able to adapt. So thank you for your incredible leadership at the Department of Energy. We value our partnership with all three of you and other mayors, of course, around the country. And I'm going to take, it's really important for us to take the lesson that we got to work together at the federal, state, and local level to build this clean energy economy and to lower costs for people and to make sure that they're safe as well. So glad to be in the trenches with all of you. Thanks so much for joining me.